Yes, it's on.
It's working. Yeah. So I'm doing this recording only because Marcy asked.
And she's absent.
Yes. Okay, so far we get to this point. We did most of the background. So now we're going to work on the flowers and the foreground. And when I did background, I did this in a very simple way. So it's just light, in some areas halftone, in some areas even halftone is missing. So it's just light and shadow, and in some areas light, halftone and shadow. And especially when you do it on plein air, at a short sketch, you don't have enough time to really develop all the details, so you do very simple way, just breaking into light and shadow. But it doesn't mean you have to stop on this stage. You can stop on this stage and it's going to be sketch, but then if you want to develop it into something more detailed, then you add reflective light, halftones and all little details. So but in the beginning, even if you do really detailed painting, you do it in very simplified way, just to fill in the surface with paint. And when you put all the colors, even in a simple way, it helps you to see where you want to go from there.
Yeah.
So if you want to make it lighter, cooler, or warmer, or darker, you already have point of reference from which you can go in different directions. So right now we're just gonna continue working on the foreground to get to the point of complexity that we have on the background to match it. And then in the foreground, to make it more coming forward to the viewer, we're gonna put more details than in the background. And then if we decide background needs more detail, we can go back and add more details, or maybe it has too much details or too much contrast, then we can soften it up. Sometimes it would help, for example, do just cool glaze over to take it kind of back into the distance. Okay, so let's work on it. And because I'm pretty much already blocked the colors, I know the temperature of the color more or less, the intensity of saturation. Now I can just pick one area, work it, and then move to another area and work on another area. Drill. Good timing. 10:32. Yeah. But don't move camera. No, don't move camera. I told you. Okay. No. Нет. Хорошо.
She just loves you. I just don't get it. She doesn't do that to anybody. I'm going to leave her to you in my will. Do you have cats in your apartment?
Not in my apartment, in my neighbor's.
If something happens to me, you get to keep my cat. No
So
comment.
for now, I'm sorry, what?
No comment.
No comment.
Oh, no comment.
Rant maker, just stay out in the rain.
Oh. I know, you have such a rough life.
So for now, I work on the shadow area. And shadow area has a lot of play of the color and tonality.
that's kind of a dark green that you're using there?
It's dark green, some light, bright green, because it has some leaves shown in the shadow.
Uh-huh.
And also browns. And some of the flowers that are in the shadow, they would be dark purple color.
Can you see okay from where you are?
Yeah, I might move over
Do you wanna move
a
it?
teeny bit here.
That's better.
And then I'm going to the light. So light in this case is warm. But some flowers have more purple in it, and some flowers have more blue in it, so I have to consider that too. And of course there are a lot of flowers, and I'm not gonna paint all of them. Maybe if I do large painting, then I would spend more time on each flower. And usually when you work on plein air, the sun is moving and the lighting changing all the time, so you don't usually spend more than 2.5 hours on one
Right.
piece, because in 2 hours the lighting changes considerably. And also if you, for example, in St. Petersburg area painting somewhere, it's sunny for 5 minutes,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
cloudy for 15 minutes,
What
it's
is it?
raining for 30 minutes,
Yeah.
and sunny again for 5 minutes.
Right.
Okay, some flowers are really, really blue. This group. And again, when you paint, think about groups, not individual flower, and create certain rhythm of different groups. And when you work with groups, never make those groups the same size. So the small group, larger group, like 2 and 3, 1 and 2, 3 and 5, like the Fibonacci numbers, or even bigger difference, like 2 flowers in one group and 6 or 7 flowers in another group. And of course, on those blue flowers, the shadow is going to be even more blue or bluer, because they're not purple. combination of blues. And then just if one or two details, I'm gonna add the branches here. Okay. Maybe a few highlights on the green as well. And as I work on group of the flowers on this area, I'm gonna work on the ground as well. So it has some warm dirt here. Also I have dry grass here, which is light ochre, yellow. And again, I'm doing it in kind of in the groups. And I'm changing the color a little bit. And then some green grass. This is California style lawn, designed in a drought period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not acceptable in other states.
Yeah, it pretty much is west of, let's see, the Continental Divide.
Only in
It's
the
all drought. The
desert
other-
areas.
The other side is just flooded.
Yeah, exactly.
This side drought, this side is
Mhm.
like 36 feet above flood level.
Okay, and I will just continue going to the right. So again, I have brown area here. Okay. Few details here. So. All right. So this area, I have really bright, kind of almost yellow area here that catches some sun. And also here. have bright, it's not purple, it's almost like pink flowers here. And here. So my highlight is too light, so I'm gonna make it half tone, which is gonna be darker and more saturated. Brighter. Okay, and some pink flowers next to the tree. Now these flowers are more orangey red. So I have a few flowers here, here.
These are the mid-tone or the highlights?
This is gonna be highlights. It's pretty light. And I'm going to add mid-tone because that I indicated in this area is a little too dark. So mid-tone is as bright, is just slightly darker than highlights. So you can see on the palette the difference. This is highlight. This is mid-tone.
Okay.
But because it's surrounded by dark colors, mid-tone would look bright also.
Okay.
Not as bright as highlights, but still. And in some areas I'm gonna add darker shadow color. Because when this first layer of paint, it's kind of half translucent, so it doesn't have enough saturation in the shadow area. And a couple flowers here. Okay, that's enough. And now I'm gonna work on this strange, like cabbage-like plant. I don't know what it is. It has this round things.
It's a succulent. Well, actually, is
Oh,
it
it's just
considered-
like, it's this. You have one in your yard
Yeah,
too.
are those really, because it's like a,
That is a succulent.
Uh,
I don't know what it's called. But
we call it a hen and chicks.
I call it
Chicks.
cabbage.
They're,
yeah.
Scientific term.
I like
ground cover.
I think they're cool. Okay.
And it has dark central point here.
No, I see it.
No, so I did them too similar to each other, so I'm gonna break it and simplify a couple of it so they don't compete one with each other. And they have kind of brown
Kind of maroon
outside
almost.
leaves.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's almost like some red in it too.
Yeah, that's what's so beautiful about them, isn't it?
Yeah. I just love the shape too.
And I'm exaggerating this warm color around it because it's so small. If I do it as it is, it's just gonna disappear. It's not gonna be visible, but I want to create this contrast between warm brownish reddish color with the green of the flower. And the shadow area is kind of dark purple. And then the shadow has more blue in it. And brown. Then I'm going to break this cluster of the flowers.
With green?
For now I'm breaking with brown, but then I'm going to add dark green and light green because some of the leaves are in the shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Dark brown is the flowers, that's orangey flowers in the shadow, they look brown. And also you can see some of the branches, which is really dark brown.
Right.
But also it has leaves. In the shadow leaves are dark green, and the light leaves they're light green. So I'm gonna use all those colors there. And it has large shadow area here, so it goes above these plants. And goes to this area. Okay, and it has
Gosh,
dark.
that's pretty.
Yeah, it's really coming
Mhm.
to life, isn't it?
So this is dark green. Also here, these two trees, they have dark green in the shadow. And it goes down here a little. And also that area has dark purple. Okay. And now green highlights. Here. And here. And on those two trees, the green is kind of brownish green, it's warm green. And the light area, it's even warmer. So I'm using a lot of yellow ochre. Here. And now I can see that I don't have enough contrast here, so I'm going to paint this area a little darker. So when I work on one area, I will not only looking at this area, I'm also looking at whatever surrounds it around.
Yeah.
So the color is not the color itself, it's color and what's next to this color. It's always relationship between the color and whatever surrounds the color. And the same color would look completely different if surrounding colors are different. But even though in a photograph the whole this area is pretty dark, I don't have to make it dark. Otherwise I'm going to lose details inside. So I'm just making dark around those two trees to create enough contrast, and that's it.
Ah.
So in reality we have much bigger spectrum of tonality and the color, and we cannot use the full spectrum on our painting because we're limited of white of the paint and the black of the paint, and white of our paint is not the brightest in nature because it doesn't transmit the light, it just reflects the light. And the sun is much more powerful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so and the trees have some red in it in the darker areas as well. Okay, so now we're moving to this area. Has some pink flowers as well. Just next to the tree here, and then this area. And also different types of flowers, they have their own rhythm, how they grow. So this purple flowers, they kind of like in line. They're not round clusters here.
Mhm.
Then I'm gonna work around it to create contrast. So I have green. There's really dark blue in the shadow here. This area. here there's some yellow flowers as well. All darker purple. Okay. Now this group of flowers, it's also kind of orangey and have this brownish shadow in between. And some purple goes there too. And then I'm gonna go back to this area so I can paint all this little palm trees or something. I don't know what it is. So it has dark shadow here, it lives in the shadow. And they go to the left of chimney here. So this is dark color, the shadow, and then mid-tone. Yeah, be quiet. And they go up here. Then highlights. Highlights are really warm, so I'm gonna use yellow ochre and just a little bit of green and cadmium yellow. So I have little light here, here, and this is light. And also I have highlights where really shiny leaves, they reflect a lot of light. And I'm using almost pure yellow with white for highlights. So there's a highlight here, here, to add a little of half tone to soften it up and create this change of direction on the leaves. Okay, and I'm gonna paint just a couple of stems. Brush a little too big for this, but it's okay. And also some dark areas around it to create more contrast. Especially in the shadow side of the room, the building. And a little cooler on this side too. So I'm gonna use paint dissolved with water, almost like watercolor, so it's translucent, it's not opaque, because I don't want to lose the color that I already have on the wall. So it's almost like wash or glaze. Okay. And this chimney is too bright, so I have to cool it down a little. And again, I'm using wash. That's good enough. I don't want to go too dark, make it too dark. Okay, so let's finish this area and then we're gonna move forward. And again, you don't have to make the same amount of details everywhere. If you do it just in the focal point in the main area is fine, and then when you go to more to periphery or the area, then you don't really need too much attention, then you don't do that much details there. Purple. Pink. The bottom of this bush. Then I have this drop shadow, which is pretty warm. I don't know why. It's supposed to be cool, but it's warm. So not everything goes by logic. Maybe because of the grass in that area, it gives this orangey color. And the light is kind of pale yellow. Okay, and this bush, I already put some brown in it. And then this round green cabbages. One here, two big ones here. Here. And then the light on each of them. This catches light on the bottom. And this on the bottom. And this on top. And
That
dark
looks
center.
Really good. So is it just green with the brown around it? Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. And it has some orange, dark orange also. And a little. And then I'm gonna break this circle because it's not circle, it's leaves, and then so first step I did just a simple shape, just circle, and then I can add details and break it into a more sophisticated shape.
Each one of those, or the big one in
The
general?
big ones, the smaller ones, and
Ah.
on the outside of the bush,
Uh-huh.
very simple. I don't put too much detail on it.
Okay.
Even this, not very detailed. It's just general shape. Basically middle tone, light and dark dots. That's it. And also drop shadows next to it in some areas, just to add a little more extra contrast. And also I'm thinking about the general shape of this bush, and it's pretty much like half sphere.
Mm-hmm.
So the upper part has light, middle kind of half tone, but the lower part, because the flower itself, it's like cone shape, it catches light on the bottom of the cone. Here. Okay, now this little, it's a pine tree or something. So this is the trunk. branches. And it has a lot of red. I guess it's the color of the bark of the tree.
I think it's also a succulent.
It's
It
the
is.
same bush.
It is.
Hmm.
It looked different.
Yeah.
Oh, it's because those big things that
Uh-huh.
covered.
Same as this? No.
Mhm.
This isn't the same as that.
Oh, let's see. Oh, maybe not.
No.
It
It's
looks
a type
like-
of a succulent.
Oh,
It's
Okay.
a little succulent bush tree kind of thing. But it's got a lot of darkish
Yeah.
reddish brown in it.
can you stop?
So the lower part is in the shadow. Here's the shadow. And then the top of the tree, it's green, but this green has a lot of red in it, so it's really, really warm, kind of brownish green. Okay, and then what's around it? I have kind of brownish area under where not much grass is. Under. And some green. In this area. Dark goes to this area. Have some dark cluster here. And a little bit of ground shows there, which is really brown, reddish. Okay. Then I have green area here. So these areas, they're gonna be much brighter, so I'm putting this color. I don't really know if it's gonna be dark enough or too light, so we'll see. When I get to the light areas, then I can do adjustments. Okay. Now, this is light, and this area is in the shade. So it's in general, this part is cooler, and all this part is going to be much warmer. So for now I'm blocking this light area, and then when it dries I'll come back and add few details. Then we come into kind of half tone area, and it doesn't have, it's not darker that much than light. It's still in the light, but in general it's just cooler.
Say that again.
So the difference between this light area, and this kind of half tone area, in tone is very small. It's almost the same. It's just slightly darker, but this side is much warmer, and this side is gonna be cooler.
Okay.
And it's gonna help create this shadow effect without making it too dark, because of variations of the temperature of the color. And then this area is even cooler. And this part has this dry grass, so it's pretty light. So this color is too light, but for now I'm gonna leave it, and when it dries I can go over and add darker details on top of it, and also add some color.
Your painting looks better than the photograph.
That's an idea.
Mm-hmm.
It should be better.
That's what I always say, is to remember that it's a painting and make it look like a painting.
Right.
Hey, stop. Stop.
So I'm just adding a few details here and there. Now I can break this light. And I'm slightly exaggerating the color here because it's gonna mix with this really light paint, and it's gonna mute it a little. Okay.
Stop it.
And a little more brownish color as well.
Stop.
Okay, a little light here. maybe a little more highlight on the tree to make it to separate from background. Okay, I think it's enough for now. And if we decide to continue with details, we can almost always add more details. But for now, the major areas are developed enough for the sketch, for the quick painting.
For the quick painting.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
call this.
I wouldn't
quick
call this
painting.
quick.
Well, it's not 30-hour painting, it's just 3-hour painting.
3, 6,
I-
9.
3. For me,
Well,
anyway.
it's we spent. I did 35 minutes demos.
Yeah,
3 demos
Well,
for 35 minutes.
that's true.
So it's one
It's
and a half
33
hour.
hours for you.
33 hours. It's a good time for nice landscape.
Yeah.
30 hours.
3 hours.
30. And
30.
3 hours is time for the sketch,
Really?
for study.
Uh-huh.
This is study. It's not finished painting.
So it would be
I mean,
way more detailed if it were a study. I mean,
it might be the same amount of detail, but it would be more elaborate and subtle.
Wow, really?
wow, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes the difference in look of quick sketch and well-developed painting is not as obvious, but if you really look at it, you will see the difference between the quality of detail.
Right. Yeah.
Especially one thing, if you look at a painting on a photograph, it's one thing, but when you look at it in a good light, the original painting, you will see
Right.
how really developed it is.
Right. It's very layered and
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to do that dock?
3 days. So more or less 8 hours a day. So it's
So that's
24 hours. Yeah.
serious.
It's more serious. Yes. It takes time to develop it.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, yeah.
Okay. Turn it.
Thank you.